All right, I am currently recording
What
in
we got.
GarageBand.
Okay.
There we go.
And
There we go.
oh,
He's rusting off the old
Oh,
pipes.
That'll be how
newly,
we sync this up at the beginning.
new.
You look great, Bubba.
Honey, you never looked better.
Hey, Bubala, I haven't heard that. My dad used to call me that, David.
Oh,
All right.
Bubba, you look great. So I'm gonna count us in.
Yep.
So we are here with Christopher Kale Jones and Mr.
OG first national tour.
First National Tour, Frankie
Holla.
Valli. Holla, ain't no holla backer. And we got Mr. Howard Tucker, who is a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of kindness, and a wealth of purity. Please welcome Howard Tucker and Christopher Kale Jones.
Hey, guys, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
And David, thank you for those kind words. And Chris, we go back a long way. It's so
We sure do.
so wonderful to see you again. To start with, Chris, I had heard about you even before we interviewed. I had connected initially very early on with Christian and Melissa Hoff, and they had told me that you had done Zhivago with Melissa and thought the world of you. And then, of course, there's this old joke. I went to see Dr. Zhivago. What's wrong with you now? Etc. But it's actually a play. Do you? And it was directed by Des Mackinoff. Is that the first time you worked with Des, Chris? And maybe you could give a little bit of background on your working with Des and how that came to Jersey Boys.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my first time working with Des. I was fortunate enough when I was in New York as a young actor. I took a monologue class with Holly Ann Ruggiero, who's now Holly Ann Ruggiero Palmer, and she ended up being Des's assistant on a number of projects, including Jersey Boys. So when the auditions came around for Zhivago, which was the adaptation of the novel Dr. Zhivago, I went and auditioned, and she was in the room. And I am pretty positive it's thanks to her that I got a call back for that. I mean, I had a fine audition, but it was for a relatively small part. You could pretty much slot in any young, ambitious actor. It wasn't a huge deal. But she made sure I was in the callbacks. I got the part, and then because of that, I got to work with Des, and also the choreographer on that show was Sergio Trujillo, who ended up being the choreographer for Jersey Boys. So I have to credit it to other people, as well as the opportunities I've had, that I was able to be in the incredible show Jersey Boys and play Frankie Valli. So it's thanks to Holly Ann I was in Zhivago, and it's thanks to that experience that they had a chance to kind of get to know me, that eventually I was in Jersey Boys.
And of course, your enormous talent plays a little bit of a role there too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I do want to acknowledge that it was incredible working with Melissa. I've always had the utmost respect for both Christian and Melissa. It's clear that they have their priorities straight. They're incredible performers, but also you can see the love in their family and how they've approached life. And it's something that I truly respect.
I went to the opening in LA, and that my reward was actually participating in the festivities, and especially in previews. He had given me some extra tickets, and that's really how we met, and we coordinated the interview, and really, I'd say a friendship started there. That really was the genesis of it. You've been very kind to me. We saw you perform. I got to meet you. I got to meet your folks on opening night. In addition to the tours, you did Blue Moo.
So literally what happened is Sandra Boynton, who's an incredible children's book author and has done musical recordings with a lot of her children's books, was looking for someone to sing one of her children's songs in the style of Frankie Valli, and she had someone lined up to do it, and then they unfortunately dropped out. I honestly forget who it was. It was someone who had an actual name as opposed to myself, but someone who was active in the recording industry. And then we were coming to town in Los Angeles, which is where they were recording, and so they literally saw her team literally saw a billboard for Jersey Boys at the Amundsen and said, well, we're looking for someone to sing a song in the style of Frankie Valli. Who's playing Frankie Valli in that production? They called the Dodgers. The Dodgers hooked them up with my agent, and I got a call from my agent being like, hey, you want to go record a song for some money? And so I got to record at the Capitol Records building, which is that big iconic kind of round building in Los Angeles, which was so cool, guys. So I went in, I recorded on the ground floor, but it was really one of those kind of pinch me experiences. And yeah, you can still get it. It's on I think the song is actually on iTunes and Spotify, as well as, of course, in bookstores. And the children's book was called Blue Moo.
Were you living in Manhattan the entire time of the first national tour, or did you move back after Jersey Boys, or move there, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I had an apartment in Manhattan when I booked Jersey Boys, and then I had my stuff there for a while, and then I went out on the road. And while I was on the road, I was still dating my wife, and we got engaged and we got married on a Tuesday. I called out of the show on Wednesday so that we could have a post marriage meal with the family, and then I flew back to the road on Thursday. And so from that time on, I had a shared apartment with my wife, obviously, in New York. So yes, I kept a residence in New York the entire time.
Now, you did do a play in New York, and I'm just not going to remember what it was. It was a play. A guy, were you celebrating a guy named Kyle, or I want to say Massey, or
yeah? So I did.
Nick Massey.
Yeah, I did a show that started at the New York Music Theater Festival. And there's an incredible musician named Ned Massey who, he was a folk artist in the style of Bob Dylan. And when he was coming up, he kind of seemed to be possibly one of the next big things, and it just never quite happened for him, even though he was incredibly talented, wrote a lot of great songs. And so he wrote a show kind of about that experience, which is fun because we don't always get to see that side of the entertainment industry, like someone who gets close to the top but then doesn't quite make it over the hill. And so it was a beautiful show that kind of told that journey, along with weaving it together with his kind of experiences of spirituality and so on. So I played kind of an angelic sort of spiritual presence in the show, which sounds odd unless you've seen the show, but basically I got to sing a lot of high tenor fun stuff and I loved it.
Yeah, I remember it pretty fondly as well. Obviously, I don't have to tell everybody that you've got a phenomenal voice, but you went.
No, Howard, you do need to tell everybody. Please keep telling everybody. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Cuneo did a wonderful, probably the best At Last I've ever heard, the Etta James song. And then I posted after that, Mike, what a great rendition. And then you posted right after me. I can't believe it. I'm your friend, you're my friend, and you like his singing. What's up with that? And, that was a treat for me to go to those tapings, and it just was wonderful. And after that, we talked about Darin Ventures.
So, as I was coming out of Under the Streetlamp, my friend Michael Ingersoll, who was also a member of Under the Streetlamp, had started his own production company as a producer. And he was producing a bunch of these shows with a single artist where they were singing the songbook of a famous musician from the past. And he asked me and approached me early on and said, would I want to do that? And so the funny thing is that when I was playing Frankie Valli on the road, Bobby Darin kept coming up because there's a lot of parallels between both of them. They both ended up making a big name for themselves in the pop world, but both of them kind of wanted to be the next Frank Sinatra. Like if you talk to Frankie, like when he was coming up, that's what he wanted. They wanted that big band. And with Jersey Boys, when he gets the horn section, that's a kind of a callback to where he started in his youth, where he wanted to be this big band singer and then just ended up being an incredible pop artist, as did Bobby Darin. So because of all these parallels, I said, yes, I would love to create a show. So I wrote a show, and I basically strung together stories of from Bobby Darin's life and from my life, and then strung it all together with Bobby Darin music. And then as I was approaching the end of my time with Under the Street Lamp, I'd already done this show a number of times with Michael, and I wanted to get a recording of it so that I could have it for sale, and also so people could listen to it. And so I approached you, Howard, and you agreed to invest in this recording. So I got a live band together. I did it live on stage here in Chicago, and I got a live recording of my show. Which is all about Bobby Darin. And so that recording I've had for a couple years now, but because of the pandemic, I actually spent the time this year getting it digitally uploaded. So now it's available on Spotify and iTunes. And it's a fun thing if the listeners here want to listen to it, because I did keep some of the stories in between the songs. So you can kind of get the feel like you're experiencing a show by streaming it. You can just go ahead and stream it for free on iTunes or Spotify. It's called Darin Live at Mercury Theater Chicago. So again, Darin live at Mercury Theater Chicago. And if you listen to it a bunch of times, I can finally pay Howard back for investing in it.
So Chris, when you were mentioning the show where you were that angelic character, I love stories that are about people who just get there but not quite over. I love that. And Richard Hester, of course, the production supervisor of Jersey Boys, actually told us a really cool way of breaking down each season, where Frankie he wanted the respect of the people. Tommy wanted respect from the people in the old neighborhood. Nick just wanted to play for himself, and Bob wanted the respect of his peers. And so for you, like, be able to play Frankie, and then also in like parallel do Bobby Darin's story through your concert, and then do that show, that just sounds like a wonderful opportunity as an actor.
You just hit the trifecta.
Literally. Yes.
Love it, David. Yeah, no, it was a wonderful experience to do all of them and play the different kind of shades of being an artist, where on one hand you have like the mountaintop experience with Frankie, and then similar with Bobby, but Bobby also died young. He died when he was 38, so like he was just kicking into gear when he passed, unfortunately. And then of course doing my friend Ned's story, and Ned Massey's still around and his music's available online, and he's another guy who's just a sweetheart. So if you like folk music, definitely look him up, because it's a fun thing to listen to and know that this is someone who almost kind of hit it real big.
Definitely. Oh, that's so cool. Well, I have a general question too. In our sound check last night, you actually mentioned how you were a math major as well as a theater major.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit at Northwestern?
Sure. So I've always loved math. When I was in high school, I finished everything my high school math department had to offer me by my junior year. So my senior year, I actually went to the University of Hawaii. I got a permission to leave campus from my high school, and I would go from my high school. I would drive to the University of Hawaii, and I would take calculus courses there. So then when I went to college, I was like, well, this is something I can continue. I still really like it. And I don't think it was so much, I'm tempted to say it was also like a tempting fallback. I don't think it was that. I did really love doing it, and I just thought it would be fun to have both majors and get a degree in both. But unfortunately, by the end of my freshman year, I was getting a little burnt out trying to maintain all the prereqs for 2 majors. And so I decided one of these is going to make money in the future, and it's not mathematics. So I dropped the math major.
Oh, well, talk about like not your standard.
And knowing your odds too. Like,
wow.
Come on.
If only we all had the insight to say, don't fall back on math, fall back on. Now, so did you study theater? Did you study acting, or did you study music theater?
So both. The way that Northwestern worked it at the time, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same now, is that you would be a theater major, which I was, and then you could also study music theater, and you would get, it's not a minor there, it was a certificate. So I graduated as a theater major with a certificate in music theater. They also do a funny thing with the major in that it's a Bachelor of Science in theater, which I think the distinction is that you do a little bit more into theater history. You have a little slightly different prereqs than to have a Bachelor of Arts.
They do still do that. My cousin went to Northwestern. She was a theater major, and she was a TYA track.
Oh, nice. Fantastic.
So, for all our listeners, TYA stands for Theater for Young Audiences. And so she also got a BS.
Awesome.
That's
That's great. Yeah. I also realized how much What's that?
Sorry. No, my cousin's name is Ferris Sklar.
Oh, fantastic. What a wonderful name.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I also realize how much I'm aging myself by saying, I think they still do this at Northwestern. Just so the
Well,
listeners
it's a
know,
fair question. It's a fair question. You know, some
Yeah.
universities change their policies and
Yes,
regulations.
and so I have a Bachelor of Arts in journalism, but I'm in the College of Sciences. So who knows?
sure.
But as I've heard for years, so every art is a science and every science has an art. So there's always both together. And so when
Totally.
you're putting together your shows or even your auditions, is there a certain methodical way you go about it?
Yeah, there definitely is. It's funny because my wife and I are both in this industry. She's an actress as well and a singer, and we approach things completely opposite. She will improv her way into something until she finds something that's right, that fits, that feels good to her, and I will plan everything out beforehand, which sometimes means I show up and it can be slightly more stale if I don't allow there to be enough kind of spontaneity with it. But I do like to plan things out, and so I think that's also where the math major comes in. When I'm approaching a piece of music, particularly, I'm already planning out where are the different departures I can take off the notes if I'm going to add a little bit of my own style. I've always had a great respect for singers who can sing so improvisationally. And a great example is someone that Howard mentioned, which is my good friend Michael Cuneo. He can, if you know the term riff, he can just riff for days. Like he'll he just knows where the chords are, and he can just go up and down and run, similar to a lot of the pop artists that you may know and love. And that's something I've never really had access to. I always kind of have to plan my way into those moments, and it's rare that I can get enough in the flow of something that I can truly just let loose and have it still stay in the music and sound great. So I've always had a huge amount of respect for that. So yeah, I tend to be an over planner. I've gotten better at that as I've gotten older. I've been able to kind of calm that down a little bit and trust that I have enough chops that I can get into a room and also kind of feel it out and be more spontaneous.
I think that's what makes, but that's what makes it easier, I guess, for you to do musical theater and for you to sing Frankie Valli, because we were talking with Aaron DeJesus, who was in. Did you cross paths with Aaron DeJesus in Vegas?
I did not. I wish I had, because I have a huge amount of respect for him, but I unfortunately have not crossed paths with him.
Oh, gotcha. So he was talking to us about how, when he sings "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You" in the show versus how he sings it at like a cabaret. Like I saw him sing it for Jeff Lebo's NF Hope for a Cure concert, and he was like, I heard it. You can do it so much differently. But that whole methodical, scientific way of approaching things is perfect for musical theater, especially with a period piece and a bio piece like Jersey Boys, where you have to sing it a specific way and plan it out a specific way, or else
or else Frankie Valli is going to call Richard Hester, and then
oh my God, do you know that story? Richard Hester tells a story where he's in London, he's on
for the show.
Yeah, he's there for the show. He's on a bridge, I forget which bridge.
Yeah,
and he's
beautiful
night, gorgeous.
Yeah,
and he sees it's Frankie Valli on the phone. I'm like, oh my God, okay, let's answer it. Hey Frankie, what's up? And he's like, I just saw the show last night, and I had a problem. I don't remember where he saw it. He didn't say where he saw it.
I think it was in Vegas.
Yeah, I think it was in Vegas. This was, I think it was like 2000, I think post 2010, I think. And so he's like, oh, like I didn't really love how the guy sang "Moody's Mood for Love," and like then
he sings it like this, but it should be here. And then and
he proceeds to sing "Moody's Mood for Love" for Richard Hester on the phone. Yeah. And
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And Richard Hester says, he's like, okay, so I'm here in London. I'm being paid to be here, and Frankie Valli is singing to me on my phone. And he's just looking, and he's just like, this is incredible, but also, I wish you would stop.
That's fantastic. But also, you guys are not going to believe this. It happened to me. So
what?
I got a call while I was in LA from the Dodgers. And I forget who was on the phone, but they said, hey, Frankie saw the show and he wanted to know if like you would be available to maybe come hang out at his house and just have a conversation about the music. So of course I was like, no, I'm too busy. I can't go meet with Frankie Valli. So of course I jumped at the opportunity. So I go to his place in Calabasas, California. It's this huge gated community. I'm rolling up in like my 1982 Honda Civic. It's barely held together by chicken wire. And I come in the door. It's this grand hallway, and he takes me to the kitchen. And we had about an hour and 15-minute conversation about his music, about him coming up, and it was just great. And I think some of what it was is he you know, whether because I've been doing the show already for 5 or 6 months or what, he had some opinions as to like how I could feel my way through the music some more, and just touch on different things in it, to kind of be able to key back into more what he sounded like. And it's funny because I loved doing the show. I felt I did a good job, but I also felt I was never one of the voices that matched him as closely. I felt I matched his spirit pretty well. But my voice, I'm Welsh by nature. I have much more of like a balladeer voice, similar to like a Tom Jones sort of thing. So I was always really trying to change that to sound more like him when I did the show. It wasn't my natural sort of instrument. So anyway, it was great to get those tips from him so that I could key into those things. But yeah, it's funny. He did definitely pay attention to the different Frankies that sung the music, and
Wow.
I'm sure he made more calls than just one to Richard Hester about different guys.
That is unbelievable. Thank you for sharing that with us. Like, were you terrified?
Oh yeah, of course I was terrified. I mean, I
God.
thought, I mean, you know, there's an element of job security where you're like, well, I've signed a year contract, so I don't think I can get fired right now. But also
A Jersey contract.
yeah,
Yes.
that's right. That's right. A
Yeah.
Jersey contract. But also, you know, I'm talking to Frankie Valli, so you know, I'm like, I hope he likes it okay. But yeah, it ended up going great.
Wow, that's so funny. And I also have to say, going back to your school experience, I love how you say music theater and not musical theater. Is there a certain reason why?
Probably not. That's probably just what everyone said when I was coming up. Is music theater.
Really?
That is
Yeah.
definitely an older term, I think. Like
Yeah.
I know some programs do call it music theater still. Some programs call it musical theater. Yeah, it's interesting.
And again, for your audiences, I am 72 years old, so I have some things that are a little older that stick with me.
Oh my God, that reminds me of the backstage video with you and Devin May. For Broadway.com. Devin May is going around to everyone. And guys, if you're listening, you need to watch this video. It is an amazing video. It gives you a great insight into how the guys were, you know, how close they were on the tour, and it's just so wonderful to watch. So Devin's interviewing Chris, and so Devin says, so, you know, you sing 103 songs in the show every night. How do you do it? And Christopher says, well, you know, it's close to that. Close to that, but really it's only 27.
Yeah.
Do you remember filming that?
I do remember filming that. It was quite fun. You know, I remember that because it was a really heightened moment in all of our lives. You know, we were about to open in Los Angeles, you know, so it was that was actually the Current. So it was San Francisco. We were about to open the show. It was a rainy day. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny to remember now because Jersey Boys has obviously become the worldwide phenomenon that it has. But at the time, it was only playing on Broadway, and we were starting off the first national tour. And so there was a lot of question, even among the creative team, like people like Des and you know, Sergio and others who were talking to us, that would this play outside of New York? Like, well, of course it plays in New York. You got people coming in from Jersey every night to see their favorite show. You know, it's going to run forever. But will that happen in San Francisco? And we were pretty sure it would have legs, but at the same time, we weren't positive. And so all of us were really kind of keyed up and hoping to do the best job we could and to represent the Broadway show as best we could. And in the midst of that, Broadway.com did this feature, and Devin May was chosen to host it, of course, because he had the most experience of any of us. He'd been Bat Boy and done a number of cool things. And he's also just like a hilarious cut up of a guy. So he hosted this thing. And so, yeah, I remember him interviewing us backstage, and I remember all of the fun hoopla of that incredible experience.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Had you seen the show on Broadway before you did it?
Yes. So, you know, I think, you know, there's that old saying that, you know, preparation that luck is where preparation meets opportunity. I had seen the show. Yeah, I had seen the show soon after it opened on Broadway and was already kind of generating some buzz. Even though it's funny because when it first came out, the initial reviews were kind of mixed. They're like, oh, great, another jukebox musical. I don't know if we need this. And then it just became this runaway smash. So I saw it early on, and I thought, my guess is there's not going to be a lot of guys who can play that role, and I know that I can. I don't know if I'll get to, but I know that I can. So I saw the show, and then I started listening to the song the soundtrack and singing through it once a day for basically 6 months. I just started singing through everything. I started figuring out where I would place the falsetto, when I would flip into it, when I would flip back down. And I did that for about 6 months, not knowing if I'd even have an opportunity to audition for the show. So by the time that audition came around, I was really, really prepared, which still doesn't guarantee you're going to book anything. But thankfully, in my case, it ended up eventually working out that I was going to be the first Frankie who was cast after Tony Award winner John Lloyd Young. And that was quite an experience.
Oh, yeah. How difficult was it for you to traverse both registers, the chest register and the falsetto register, and, find your sweet spot, like the transition between both?
Yeah, it took a lot. Again, we've talked about planning. It took a lot of planning for me to do that. Basically, some singers have more finesse and versatility where they can kind of just flip in and out willy-nilly. For me, I knew that if I was going to do it, I'd have to know where I was flipping in and where I was flipping out. So I planned each one of those songs and took time on each one so that I knew that, okay, on this note, I'm going to still be my chest voice, and I'll flip into my falsetto and keep going up, and then I'll come back down and flip back in here. And it took a lot of kind of negotiating the voice. I also had to be very careful to make sure I had enough voice for the show every night. I mean, as you guys probably know, within the first couple of years of doing the show, they went from thinking John Lloyd Young was going to be the only guy playing this role 8 shows a week, and then they switched into the 6-show and 2-show format because it was just such a beast to sing. They were losing people, and John was having trouble, and he was needing to call out more than they wanted him to, and that's when they did that. But they were still learning all of that when we were auditioning and rehearsing the show. I did for our entire preview portion in San Francisco, I did all the shows. So I was doing 8 shows a week for like 2 weeks.
Jared wasn't covering for you?
He was, but as you can imagine with big projects like this, they want to get the show in good shape, and they don't often have time to prepare everybody who's covering until the show's up. And so they wanted to make sure that the opening was as good as it could be. So unfortunately for Jared, I having talked to him, I believe it was, not fair for him because he had to basically wait until we opened before they finally got him rehearsed and then up. And then he started doing the 2-show. And I mean, he was fantastic, and obviously went on to Broadway and a number of other amazing things because he's an incredible performer. But at the time they were just so focused on getting every detail right that I was doing all of the shows in previews. So I was living pretty monkishly outside of the show to make sure that I'd be able to get on stage and do the show justice every night.
Now, a lot of Frankies say Moody's Mood for Love is the hardest number in the show, or like one of the hardest sections. But I'm in the Mood starts out in F, and then it modulates into B flat. So for Moody's Mood. So, but Moody's Mood, like you're sitting on those C's and those D's and those E flats, going up to those F's. So it is, for me, it is a little bit easier to traverse that song than for me to say it's easier to traverse that song than I Can't Give You Anything But Love, because you're really sitting in that chest register, and like especially the end of that number. So many people sing that end differently, because I know Rick Fagno and Joseph Leo Bueri, they always chested the end of that number, but that A flat is in such that horrible break spot. So how were you musically directed to sing the end of I Can't Give You Anything But Love?
So it was kind of negotiated with each singer as they did it. So you get in the rehearsal room with your musical director, you tackle it. For me, it sounded, I could sing the end of that song chested. It just sounded too bombastic, because I have kind of just a bigger voice, which is not necessarily a good thing. It's just my instrument just happens to be like, it just makes a big sound. So when I'm chesting something, it'll be loud if it's up in the A-B range. So while I was able to do it, they listened to it. They're like, nope, that doesn't sound like Frankie. Let's not do that. So they had me flip in, I think 1 or 2 notes beneath that. So I would, I can't give you, I think starting on anything, So starting on anything, I would flip in, and then we would just try to goose as much of the falsetto as we could under that, because unfortunately that note is lower in the falsetto range, so that it became about putting as much air as I could behind the falsetto there. But that's how I did it.
That's so. Who was your music director for your leg of while you were there? Was it Ron? Ron Melrose?
Yeah, so Ron Melrose set the entire show with us, which was, of course, a huge gift. Having
Beautiful.
done the, yeah, we benefited from having everyone that was on the Broadway creative team launch the first national tour, because again, it was the first time other parts of the country were going to see the show. They really wanted to make sure it was as good as it could be. So we had the entire original creative team, which is an incredible gift as a performer. So Ron set it, and then we had a great musical director on the road named Andrew Wilder, who's had MD'd a number of Broadway shows and joined us on the road. And he's everything you want out of an MD. He's particular enough to keep you where you need to be, but also kind of let you have the few, choices that still stay in the world of the Four Seasons.
Did you and Jared Spector ever feed off of each other with certain ways you would approach notes?
Oh gosh, we have such different instruments. Jared is one of the guys. There are like 2 or 3 guys in the Jersey Boys world that I think got as close as you can get to Frankie without being Frankie. And Jared is one of those guys. I just think he had an instrument that already naturally sounded more like Frankie in the pop world, in my opinion. And so when he then made efforts to go even closer to Frankie, I just felt that he was just spot on. And I've been so happy to see all of the things that have happened in his career. But yeah, so we never really kind of compared notes. We were both kind of autonomous performers. We were friends and would hang out, but it was like, I know what I'm doing, you know what you're doing. I don't think he would watch, like he had to watch me a bunch before we started. So I think he stole whatever he thought was good and then made up the rest of his stuff. Cause that was one thing that Des actually told me in rehearsals, which is something I've kept with me my entire career, is that amateurs invent, professionals steal. Yeah.
I love that line.
I do too, because, especially coming out of school, and I've been out of school like 3 or 4 years before I got Jersey Boys, but coming out of school, like you're so intent on being original and like, I'm going to show everybody how original I am and how I can bring what I do to every role that I play. And if you don't get over that, you're actually going to lose the ability to get a lot better at what you do, because if you can steal from the people who are doing something really well and then put your own spin on it, it's just going to be a better product. So I always appreciated Des telling me that. And I went and saw the show while we were rehearsing at the 42nd Street Studios in New York City before we went out to San Francisco. I went and saw the show 2, 3, 4 times, and each time was like, okay, yep, I like that thing John does. I'm going to do that. I like this. I like that. And then we'll just add my own on top of that. So, I was grateful for that lesson from him. So I'm sure there were occasional times where I went into the theater and saw Jared, where I stole a couple things, and I'm sure he may have stolen 1 or 2 things from me, but he's a pretty amazing original performer. So I can't guarantee he stole anything from me. He may just be innately incredible.
That's so cool.
Yeah, what's amazing, I mean, all you guys have so much love for each other, and you guys came up together in this show, and y'all were part of the first cast the rest of the world got to see and the rest of the country got to see, and it's so amazing. And to see where you guys are now, like that's a big part of our show, is seeing where you guys are now and how the show has affected you, and especially during the pandemic, how much you think of it and how much joy you get from it, because it can be a lonely, dark time right now, so thank you so much for sharing all your stories. And that was just something I just
of course, yeah. It's always so great to hear that you're still so close with all of them, and the whole point of Jersey Boys is family is everything, and you guys are, from what you told us. So that's so wonderful to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of we still, we don't see each other very often, but there's still a lot of people from that world that I keep track of, follow on social media. I've been excited to see different achievements. I mean, Eric Bergen obviously went on to Madam Secretary, and it is now in the middle of the pandemic shifted into having his own production company, and he's been doing incredible things with that. I was just on his social media this morning because he posted a song that he had recorded, and it was beautiful. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun keeping in touch. And honestly, my best friend came out of that experience. Michael Ingersoll is my best friend. He lives here in Chicago. He's up in Skokie. I'm in Lakeview. And so I'm thankful to the show that it provided me one of my best friends. And part of the reason we're best friends is because we've shared so many of these unique experiences. You know, he and I, coming out of Jersey Boys, did Under the Streetlamp, and that was a weird life imitating art thing because we had been in a musical playing a band that was on the road where none of us had experienced that before, and then came out of that and became a band that went on the road. And so I now have a visceral understanding of what life on the road is like, and how it plays
Right.
out, and like being on a bus and then getting to the next town, and then, oh yeah, my socks are dirty, I guess I'm washing them in the sink tonight, you know.
Gotta protect your socks.
And now you're gonna bring that perspective, everyone, guys. He's going to be playing Frankie Valli in Jersey Boys on stage again in St. Louis.
That is
Amazing.
correct. Yeah, so here's kind of a full circle story. So my wife and I met doing a production of Grease at Stages St. Louis, which is this fantastic music theater house in St. Louis, and I was Duty and she was Frenchie, and we immediately just went head over heels for each other, and we were married a year later. But while I was there doing Grease with her, the audition came up for Jersey Boys, and I flew to New York. I auditioned for the show. I flew back to St. Louis, and I found out I got a call back, and the callback was on the first day of previews for Grease in St. Louis. And it was also like the stormy, like tornado season in St. Louis. And they're like, flights get canceled all the time. If you go to that callback for Jersey Boys, we don't know if you're going to make it back. Your understudy, of course, isn't prepared yet because it's the first preview. We really need you to not go back to the callback. And I made a commitment to them, and I felt the right thing at that point in my life was to not go to this callback. I'm not sure I would make the same call now, but at the time I was like, I made a commitment to these guys, a commitment to them. So I was going to go ahead and stay there. So I didn't go to my callback, and they cast someone else in the role for the first national tour of Jersey Boys, but they were having trouble in their negotiations with this person. And I got a call like a month and a half after that from Holly Ann Ruggiero, Dez's assistant. She's like, hey, are you doing anything in like a month from now? Like, did you book any shows? I was like, no, I've got a couple callbacks, but nothing's firmed up yet. She's like, okay, cool. That's all, thanks. And then she hung up the phone, and I didn't hear anything. And I was telling my girlfriend, now wife, Jenna, I was like, I got this really weird call from Holly Ann. She wants to know if I'm busy around when the tour is starting. Don't know what that means. And then the next day I got a call from her, and she said, okay, we're flying you out to San Francisco. They were at the time in their tech process for The Wiz, which was something they were going to take to Broadway. And so I went there while they were doing The Wiz. It was the same team again. It was Des and Sergio and Ron Melrose. And since they were all there, they flew me out there, and they were like, yeah, so you're going to come audition for Frankie. Here's 7 scenes and 5 songs. Just have them all learned by the time you get there, and we'll go ahead and audition you. So they flew me out to San Francisco. I did. What
was the time, like, you got the call, learn all this shit by the time you get there? How long did you have to learn all this shit?
If I'm remembering correctly, so I got the initial call where they was just checking availability. The next day I got the call saying you're going to audition. And then I think 2 days later, I flew out to San Francisco. And
Wow.
in the middle there, so the day that I got the call saying I was going to audition, they said, you have tickets to Jersey Boys tonight. Go see the show so you can refresh yourself. And you're going to meet tomorrow with our dialect coach, Stephen Gabus, who was at that time coaching a show on like Theater Row. He's like, go meet him at Theater Row. And just spend an hour with him, and he's going to start getting you into the accent. And then the day after that, you're going to fly out to San Francisco and audition again. And I did. And that was the first time I had a pretty decent conversation with Ron Melrose at the piano. So it was kind of an elongated audition process because they were also rehearsing for the show The Wiz at La Jolla Playhouse at the time. So I would kind of like do a couple scenes, they would go back to rehearsal, they'd come back out, I would do something else. I'd be like, okay, next time we come out, you're going to do this. And then they would go do something else. So at one of these times, I was just in a room with Ron Melrose, and he was the first person to be like, listen, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get this. And it's your life's probably going to change. So just, prepare for that. And there you go. So I finished auditioning there. I flew back to New York. My agent called and said, it's looking really good. You most likely have this, but Bob Gaudio has casting authority. He has to sign off on every person who's going to be one of the big 4 guys. And he wasn't there in San Francisco. He was in New York. So I had another audition where I was going to do slightly less material, but still most of it. And it was going to be midweek after I got back. So I got back on like a Sunday, and it was going to be on Wednesday. And all of the producers and everyone was going to be in the room. So I go back to the studio in New York, and all the producers are there. There's like 9 people in there, but Bob's not there yet. So I'm just waiting there. They're like, yeah, as soon as Bob gets here, we'll get started, but he's got to see everything. So it was only a few minutes, but then Bob walks in, and he happened to be hanging out with Joe Pesci that day.
What?
So so he walks in the door with Joe Pesci. So Joe Pesci is now in my final callback for Jersey Boys, staring me down, and I have to pretend to be not only Italian but from New Jersey, and get all the attitude I can in front of Mr. Mob Guy himself, Joe Pesci, like the quintessential mob movie actor. So yeah, I was definitely nervous, but it all worked out, and that was about, I think, 2 to 2.5 weeks before rehearsal started. And so I got it. My agent let me know I got it. It worked out the details. And a couple weeks later, I was in a rehearsal room with Des and Sergio and the entire team. So it was crazy, but that was at Stages St. Louis. So full circle. Now they called me during the pandemic. They're like, hey, we got the rights to Jersey Boys. Do you have any interest in playing this part again? I was like, yeah, I would love to play the part again.
Absolutely
not. So they are opening up this brand new theatrical space that the city that they're in has spent millions of dollars on. So it's going to be a beautiful space. And yeah, I think it's starting September 24th. To October 24th. I'll be there playing Frankie. And as you guys know, because I let you know a little bit earlier, my wife will be playing Mary Delgado. So I'm really excited about that.
So cool. And
holy shit,
you guys are going to be experiencing this together. It's been about a decade since you've been in the show, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to be having this amazing experience again, experiencing this great material and getting to do it with your wife.
Yeah, I'm really excited. She's been excited to yell at me on stage for years. So she's super stoked, and
oh my god,
she's going to be an incredible Mary.
I can't wait to see. Good job, Dad.
Yeah. That the knife is going to go in there.
I know, and now that I have like an 8-year-old girl, woof.
Oh my God, this is exactly what we talk about. We've talked about with other Frankies, with Travis Clower and with Aaron De Jesus, how different it is to play this role, especially the Francine scenes. Now that they have kids, that you're a dad, we're so excited for you. We're so excited.
Thank you.
And we'd love to be there.
Yeah,
oh my
St.
God.
Louis, September,
St. Louis.
let's go.
September 24th to October 24th.
Yep.
A month, guys, get your tickets. It's gonna be what a show.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to do it. So yeah, it'll just be great.
Yeah,
that's so amazing.
Have you looked back at the script yet and just thought about how maybe your perspectives have changed over the past 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I looked through the script. They're making a couple small changes to the script because they do have a slightly more conservative audience. So there won't be quite as many fucks when you see it in St. Louis, just so you know, so your audience knows.
Jenna better still have the first one.
I think she does. I think she does. Yeah. So yeah, but I've been looking through it, and it is funny, to have a lot of memories come flooding back as to like where I was when I first said these lines, when I first read these lines, like when I first saw the set coming together. You're just seeing all of this grandeur around you, and you're like, I remember being incredibly intimidated right before we opened the show in San Francisco because you're literally seeing millions of dollars that have been put into something that is now, to some respect, riding on your and your friend's shoulders. So we were all like, okay, hope we don't fuck this up.
No, of course not.
Well, you know what they say, some people are born great, some people have greatness thrust upon them, and then some people, like Christopher Colley Jones, achieve greatness and do amazing fucking things, man.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So we have a very niche, specific
Frankie
dissection,
question.
if we could with you, and for you specifically with the direct addresses. We love the Summers in Jersey speech, and it's such a delicate line between being in the present day for you as an actor. So it's 2005, like you're talking to us from that perspective, but also you have to be in the moment when you're going back, when you have to pick up the phone when you hear the news about Francine. So, and basically, like, how did you approach the direct addresses when you have to kind of just be in the moment, but also be out of the moment.
And knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
Jersey Boys irony.
Sure.
You know, it's because it's not dramatic irony, but it is.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
one of the things that's built in that just is so helpful for the actors when delivering these direct addresses from Jersey Boys is just the writing from Rick and Marshall. It kept you present. You were just always you didn't have time to get too out of sync with the show. So in that one in particular, it was easy to do because, well, not easy, but you know, it for me as an actor was so helpful to have gotten somewhere in the script. You know, by the time you get to Summers in Jersey, like you finally you're paying off the debt. You got the group back together. You and Bob have pushed through, and you're finally like breathing a breath of fresh air. And isn't that always the case? Where like when you finally feel like everything's covered, all of a sudden you miss the truck that's coming straight at you or something. You know, and so I felt it was so well written that way that I just stayed in the present moment where it's just happy, and then you pick up the phone, and then I just allowed that to kind of happen and take over. It was one of my
that's so interesting because we were.
Have you seen Oh Hello on Broadway?
I wish I had seen Oh Hello on Broadway. I did see it on Netflix, but I don't remember everything from it.
I only saw it on Netflix too. So do you remember the part when Steve Martin comes on and he's basically giving half a master class and he says, okay, this is how comedy works. When you pick up the phone, if the news is happy, you pick up the phone sad. If the news is sad, you pick up the phone happy. And that's exactly what you did.
And that's so, because so many Frankies do that so differently, because I know there are some Frankies where it's like, they really do traverse that line, because there's one Frankie where, you know, he's saying that line, and you know, things are good. I think that's right.
Things are getting better.
Things are getting better between us. The phone rings. He looks and he gives a face like he knows what's going on. And then
the Adapasta Nutata.
Yeah, and then that's the Adapasta Nutata section.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, like he know it's like in Hadestown where they say, you know how the song's gonna end, but you still sing it again.
Right. Yeah, I think for me there was an element of being in the present, knowing what would happen on the call.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you finish saying, you know, this too shall pass, you have to be back in the present moment where Frankie's just finished a show. He normally has his customary phone call. He's going to go have his phone call. So that for me, I found it detrimental to carry too much of the knowledge of what was about to happen into that.
100%.
You have to just give enough so that the audience has some idea that something is about to happen, whatever it is, but something is happening. You can't just be like, hey, this too shall pass. But at the same time, once you say it, you've got to flip back into like, finished my show. Oh, breathe. I can breathe a breath, and now I get my call from my family. This is great. Here we go. And then it has to overtake you, because it just is more powerful that way. And one of my favorite things, you know, each Frankie has their own things, and it is funny, like you talk about it being like a collectible sort of thing, because people fall in love with like the cast that they saw. And I have got, you know, I've gotten tons of people who are like, you were my first Frankie, you're the best Frankie, and other people be like, I saw Jared first, you're fine, or like, you know, or like Michael Longoria or John or whatever, you know, be like, they'll always be my favorite. It's great. It means that people have really identified with, you know, these characters and the ones that they saw first. So I do love that. One of the things that I always took with me is I forget who it was, but it was a friend of Bob and Frankie's who had kind of come up with them, who saw the show and wrote me afterwards. And, you know, he'd seen a couple different versions of it. And he said, the thing I like about you is that in his opinion, carried Frankie's heart the best. Like he just felt like, for whatever reason, the performance I was giving really had a lot of heart that he identified as being similar to Frankie's spirit. And so I always really kind of treasured that compliment for me, because that's also something that I strive for in a lot of the parts that I play as an actor, because I'm still active as an actor. It's what I love doing. I'll do it till I die, is that really trying to key into like the heart of a character. Because I'm not the best mimic. I'm not the best imitator. I've already said there are other Frankies who I thought did it way better than me. But I do try to find out what's motivating you, what's driving you, and how can I make you human for this audience tonight.
It's an actor's dream. It really is. It's such a beautifully written part, and it's one of the hardest parts. It's definitely top 5 hardest musical theater parts in all of history.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, setting aside the fact that like there are no like baritone parts anymore, but like even in terms of tenor parts, you have to use so many different parts of your voice, and the script is so good, and you have to everything has to come together so nicely. And dude, we're just so honored to be talking to you, because you're part of that huge legacy of what of how the world and the rest of the country and the rest of the world was able to be introduced to the show.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
and that
Yeah.
music too. You're keeping the music alive. You know, so we're
Yeah.
25. We're definitely that younger generation, and we got more into it because you were on that national tour,
Yeah.
giving that
Yeah.
education to so many people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's very, very kind of you to say all that. And yeah, I love this show, and it's a gift. It's a gift for an actor to be able to play a part like that, even just once in their career. So yeah, I certainly continue to treasure that experience and look forward to being able to do it again.
Yeah. Do you think your monologue classes with Holly and Ruggiero impacted how you approached your direct addresses? Maybe.
That is a great question. I mean, I took a 1-day workshop with her, so it wasn't
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
like a long extended
Okay,
thing. But
gotcha.
yeah, it's funny. I have a notebook somewhere where I wrote down, because I used to write down everything that I would learn in a class. And I know I have that somewhere, but I don't remember what I wrote down from that. But it was good. I think she focused a lot on staying present, so that definitely held true in
Yeah.
terms of what we were just talking about. Is that if there's any part of your monologue that you're delivering like you already know what's coming and you've already decided how you feel about it, it just immediately becomes less exciting for an audience than if you're
Right.
keeping it present, obviously.
Yeah. Well, speaking of keeping it present, let's move to the future and talk about all the shows that you're working on. So you are going back with Under the Street Lamp this summer in June.
I am, yeah. So, similar to the entire live arts world, Under the Street Lamp stopped performing during the pandemic. I had left the group at the end of 2017, but then when this pandemic happened, they had to stop their concerts, and now they have some coming back, and they had an opening in their roster for a couple shows. So on June 18th, I will be with them at the Genesee Theater in Waukegan, Wisconsin. So I think they're, just in case people want to go see it, it's geneseetheater.com. You can get tickets there, but that's on June 18th, which is a Friday night. And then 2 days later, we're playing a casino in North Dakota, but I don't have that information. I'm not even sure if that's for public sale or whether it's just for the people at the casino. But yeah, so I'm doing a couple gigs with them. So that's another kind of full circle moment. It's funny given the fact that this pandemic has been so hard on arts workers, and we all never envisioned a world where Broadway would shut down. When 9/11 happened, it shut down for like a day, and then it was back. We never saw this coming. So given what this year has been, I'm so excited that I have so many wonderful things on the horizon with Under the Street Lamp, Jersey Boys. I'm currently doing a virtual project for Chicago Shakespeare Theater, which is going to be streaming live starting tomorrow, I think, May 24th. So yeah, that'll be streaming May 24th for about a month. And I could talk about that a little bit. It's really kind of fun and kooky, the project I'm working on. And then I also had been cast in a production of Children of Eden right before the pandemic happened. Yeah, this is another kind of cool story. I hope I don't bore your listeners, but basically,
No, not at all.
So Stephen Schwartz, when he wrote Children of Eden, had kind of always envisioned it having a Broadway run at some point, and it didn't. It was one of his shows that never had a Broadway run. So he had this idea that he wanted to try to remount it and find some people to do it, and possibly give it that chance for a Broadway run in the future, and also at the same time record it for posterity. And so he made a deal, I think, with PBS to record the show, but he was looking to hire a cast locally in Chicago along with some celebrities. So I went and auditioned here in Chicago, and a good friend of mine, Brenda Didier, and her assistant, Chris Carter, she was directing and he was choreographing, and then an amazing musical director, Jermaine Hill, who I'm actually working with right now on the Chicago Shakespeare Project, was going to be music directing. So I went to audition for them, and guys, when I went in the room, Stephen Schwartz was in there. So I sang.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I sang "A World Without You" from Children of Eden in front of Stephen Schwartz,
Composer.
and thankfully, because I'm friends with people behind the table, like my friend called me afterwards, like, yeah, Stephen really liked your voice. I was like, no,
Oh,
Stephen Schwartz liked my voice. That's amazing. So I
Big
totally,
man in town.
Yeah,
Big man in town.
I totally fangirled out, and I was so stoked. And then he ended up casting me. He cast. They're still seeing whether everyone can do it because now it's been pushed until the summer of 2022, but it should still be here in Chicago. But I'm the understudy for Adam, so
Wow.
I'm super excited to do it. Thank you. So yeah, that'll be coming up next year. So yeah, it's
That's
just
so cool.
it was so odd the timing when you reached out to me because literally all this stuff started happening right when you guys were reaching out to me, and I was like, I guess I'll actually have a number of things to talk about. This is really fun.
Yes. Oh, we're so happy for you,
Thank
Chris.
you, Howard, for putting us in touch.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, as they say, everything happens for a reason.
Exactly. And you know what?
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. Everyone remembers it how they need to, and everything happens the way it needs to.
Exactly.
That's right. I'll tell you another story from the show that's one of my favorites because they like a lot of these things that you've already done. A lot of these are done in lists where you list like 3 things in the show, and one of them is Nikki's speech, which happens right before I make an entrance where he says, there are 3 things you don't do. You don't lie to your mother. You don't tell the truth to your wife. And the third thing, everybody knows that. So Michael Ingersoll was delivering this speech one night and completely forgot what the third thing was. And that's my cue line to come on. So literally, and he's in it, like, it's not everyone on stage. He's in a pin spot on stage by himself. Yes. He's in that pin spot. And literally, this is what he says. There are 3 things. Everyone knows there's 3 things you can't do. You don't lie to your mother. You don't tell the truth to your wife. And that was it. And I thought like his mic had cut out. I just missed it. And so I come on like 5 seconds late for my entrance. And then as soon as we're both able to get off stage afterwards, like, dude, did your mic cut out? He's like, nope, I just completely forgot what the third thing was. So
went to the white room. There we go.
It was really, really funny.
Oh my God.
That I think that's my favorite dialogue story.
Yes,
that's
100%.
So funny.
Yeah, just kind of like,
just so Nick Massey.
Yep, just like don't know what that third thing is, and it sucks because you literally set up the line by saying there's 3 things, and then you say 2 of them.
No, but it's a perfect comedic moment that worked out. It totally worked out.
You know what? I just made a huge realization. Rick Ellis loves 3 things.
It's the rule of 3.
It is the rule of 3. You're right, Gia.
He does that.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
He does that in the Addams Family too.
I'm sure.
Oh,
there are 3 things.
Yes.
Gomez. It's so funny.
3's work for comedy. 3's just they work.
Yep.
Rick, we love you, Rick. He knows.
Yep.
We were wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Joe Siravo.
Sure, I'm happy to. It was a blow to have him pass. He was a big presence, in the Jersey Boys world and in the world in general. He was the one when we started rehearsing that we were all kind of looking to in some way because he'd been around the block. He had achieved a lot of what a lot of us were headed towards and we're looking to do in our careers. So of course we were looking to him for that. But also he was the real deal. He'd been on The Sopranos. He was this Italian guy. He had everything innately that we were all struggling to, put on artificially. And so I remember definitely me, and I'm sure a lot of the other cast too. You deliver a line and then kind of glance out the side of your eyes and be like, "Did Joe like it? Did Joe think that was good?" Just because he was kind of our measure for authenticity, and beyond that, he was. We've said this about a number of people, but he just had a big heart. And he was always open for a conversation about acting, about choices. He was free and easy with that sort of thing. He wasn't, he'd achieved the most of any of us who were doing the show at that point, but there was never an arm's distance from him. It was never like, you stay over here, just stay in your lane, do your thing. He was open to every conversation. Like, how can we make this joke better? How can we, make this dialogue better? How can we create the dynamics that are going to work in the Gyp DeCarlo scenes, with the guys. So yeah, he will definitely be missed. you know, I'd mentioned before Michael Ingersoll, who was my initial Nick Massey on the first national tour. He was really, really close with Joe, and he and I were texting that day. And you know, Joe had kind of mentored him a bit in his life. So there's an impact that goes beyond himself. And I mean, in one sense, it's the silver lining is that that's kind of what you want to happen when you pass. You want your reach to go further than just you. You want people who have been touched in some way by what you contributed, and the value you were able to give to other people. And he definitely was someone who excelled in that way. And I will miss him. I'm bummed I will never get a chance to work with him again, or just to have a bite to eat with him and shoot the breeze about acting and the career. But he was a stand-up guy, and I will always love him.
Of course.
Yeah,
We're so sorry for your loss.
Chris.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Joe Siravo, we are lifting you up on our podcast. And Christopher Kale Jones, we will always support you and share whatever you are working on, whatever you want us to tell the world. We are here for you.
Fantastic. I don't know if you've had any two-timers on your podcast, but I love podcasts. So if I do anything really big in the future where like it's worth it to have me on again, please have me on again because
anytime. If you wanted to shoot the breeze with us or really even dissect anything about the show, like what we usually like to do is we like to pick one section of the show. So maybe even it's just like we could do act 1, we could do just winter, we could pick a season.
Yeah, we just
and we can go through it all together.
Deep dive. That's what we do.
That's what we do. We're the deep dive.
We're the deep dive universe.
Yes.
That is fantastic. I mean, okay, so basically let's just meet every Friday night from now on. We'll have a bottle of wine and we'll just talk story. It'll be great.
Salud.
Don't tempt us. Don't tempt us because we will.
Yeah. Well, if you wanted to, whether for the podcast or not, we could figure something out once I start rehearsals in St. Louis. You could talk to like a whole bunch of new people approaching the material for the first time. Probably.
Yes.
That would be sick.
We would absolutely love that. Yes.
Totally.
To make that connection, that'd be sick.
If I could for a minute, Chris.
Yeah.
I am very grateful for the strength and the length of our friendship. And, you know, may we have many more years of theater and friendships together. And Gia and David, it's fairly new, but hopefully that will go on forever too. Chris, I can't thank you enough. You really have elevated my life as well to a new level. So thank you.
Thank you, Howard. I appreciate that.
Salud.
Yes, a lot of work and a lot of years.
It took a lot of work and a lot of years.